Welcome to Gumball Love. I'm Melissa Ledger, professional relationship coach, creator of Gumball Love and the Back to You Academy. If you're ready to stop the cycle of toxic men, get through the breakup once and for all, and finally get back to you, you are in the right place. This journey is about healing your heart, and you are encouraged to take the pace that is just right for you. In the process, you will build a foundation of confidence and strength that will make you unshakable, I promise. So get ready to level up your mindset and your lifestyle as you awaken the seeds of greatness just waiting to burst into full bloom. Let's do this. Welcome back to another episode of Gumball Love. I'm your host, Melissa Ledger. So I told you last week, I had a very special guest lined up for this week, and it is Cara Alwill Leyba from the Champagne Diet. Welcome, Cara.
Hi, Melissa. I'm so excited to be back on the show.
Me too. I'm so excited to have you here. And I cannot wait for everybody to get your book, which we are set to release this podcast on the day, the 11th. So as they are hearing this come across, they can actually get your book, Girl on Fire. Are you just like going crazy? Can't wait to get this out there?
I am so excited to get this out there. I am holding back from sharing too much, like in the build-up process, because I just want to give it all away. I cannot wait a second longer for people to read this. I'm just so proud of this book, and I literally poured my heart and soul into it. And I think it's just a reflection of everything I've been through over the past couple of years since Girl Code came out, everything we've all been through together as a society, as women. So I am just thrilled to put it out into the world, and I'm so glad that you guys can now read it.
Yes. Okay, so most of my people have heard of you, but just give a quick intro of who you are so everyone can kind of get up to speed, and then I have like a million questions.
Sure. So I am a New York City-based author, born and bred here in New York. I started my career 11 years ago, and I kind of use the word career lightly because it really just took a crazy path. I started with a blog called The Champagne Diet 11 years ago. I was working a corporate job that was really just sucking the life out of me, and I needed a creative outlet. I was inspired by a glass of champagne. That's hence the name, The Champagne Diet. It was a very tongue-in-cheek title. But champagne really became a metaphor for me for celebrating every day, first and foremost, for always finding a reason to celebrate, for feeling like it was okay to feel glamorous on a random, Thursday afternoon, treating yourself well. And I wasn't doing any of those things at that point in my life, but I knew that I wanted to. And the blog chronicled my transformation and my journey. And I would share things I was learning and just, share that story and give women takeaways like, hey, here's kind of what I took from this. It almost was like a very Sex and the City feel, but instead of talking about relationships, I was talking about life and passion and careers and my dreams. So the blog turned into a couple of books. Now this is number 9. It's taken me through the years, 11 years later, 9 books later. I've got the blog. I've got a coaching practice. I coach women all around the world. Mainly women entrepreneurs, but I've worked with tons of women from all different backgrounds to really upgrade their lives, upgrade their mindsets, and stop waiting for permission to be who they want to be.
I love that. One of my questions to you, maybe I'll just ask it right now, is why do you feel like we are waiting for permission? Where do you think that comes from?
That is a great question. I really think it comes from the programming that we have just been taught for years. If you think about school, even just like, when did we all start school? Pre-kindergarten, we were like 3 years old, 4 years old. Everything was about rules. Everything was about falling in line and following rules. And I think a lot of it, is necessary in terms of like creating order in society and, helping us develop morals as humans. But there's so much that, is told to us from a young age to really do things a specific way, whether that's, the way that you go through school and the way that you behave and what you're expected to do after school and when you're expected to get married, when you're supposed to be buying a home, when you're supposed to get a job, retire from that job. And there's really not a lot of room for self-expression and following your intuition and figuring things out. And, it's like the worst thing in the world to people is failure. And I think failure is the best thing in the world because I think that's what teaches you. And that's how you learn and grow and learn to trust yourself. So I think it starts at a young age, and it takes a really long time and a really big effort to undo that programming, but it can be done. I'm living proof that it can be done. You're living proof that it can be done. You just have to make that commitment and follow through with it.
Okay, so I have a couple questions, so maybe I'll just go with that. So what do you think is the first step to that deprogramming of, I'm going to, because you're right, we're following all these systems. I never really thought of that, but you're right. We go to school and we do all these things a certain way. And Hollywood tells us that this is how you're going to grow up, and you're going to get married, and you're going to have kids, and you're going to have the dog. Like every story where it's affiliated with holidays, it just creates this beautiful fairy tale. And then real life actually happens. And then you like this whole idea that you're giving of following your intuition and following your passions or your dreams. It's like not really, that's not the message at all. So how did you begin to even deprogram that, or even know to reprogram it?
Well, I was unhappy. That was my first cue. I was really unhappy. I was in a relationship that was not good for me. It was very tumultuous. It was very unhealthy for the both of us. It was not a good match. We were very young, and it just wasn't a good match for us. And I was in a job that on paper looked good. I was making good money, but I was just really unfulfilled. I'm a very creative person. I love to write. I've been writing since I was, in elementary school, and I wasn't able to express myself creatively at all. So I listened to the cues, and I was brave enough to then think about what I really wanted. If I wasn't happy with what was happening in my life, what did I really truly want? Who did I really want to be? And it took me time, and I'm still developing that. I think that's the beauty of life and empowering yourself with these tools and these skills. This is an ongoing process. It's not like we just become someone new and then that's who we are forever. We're meant to change. We're meant to flow into new versions of ourselves. But I think you have to figure out what that looks like, and you have to have the courage to dream and to, stop yourself from limiting those beliefs and those thoughts. Like, I can't tell you how many times people told me growing up, writers don't make money. You'll never make a career as an author. Writers, they always have to have another job, and books don't pay the bills. And that's untrue. I mean, I make a great living off being an author, and I had to be brave enough to chase that curiosity and follow all of my obsessions and think about, okay, maybe I could be the one to actually break that mold. Maybe I could challenge that belief. And the only way to make it happen was to try and to start putting myself out there and taking those actions to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it. I love it. So I want to jump ahead to Girl Code, and so give everybody an idea of what Girl Code was, and then why Girl on Fire after. I'm curious of like when you were sitting there after Girl Code and you were like, okay, you have that really, I feel like just blew up your tribe. And then it was like, now you have everybody ready and waiting. So what made you connect Girl on Fire to like the next step after Girl Code?
Yeah, so I wrote Girl Code in 2015. It was about a little less than a year after I had quit MTV. So I finally was able to leave my corporate job while I was building the blog and writing the books. I left in 2014, and I wrote Girl Code in the summer of 2015. And that book was really a chronicle of my experience as a female entrepreneur and new to that world, really getting involved with that community and seeing that there were really two different types of women in that community. Mm-hmm. There were women who were super competitive, women that felt there was one way to do things, and they, were ruthless in, competitiveness and drama and just being really catty. And it was just a really not place that I wanted to be. It wasn't a community that I wanted to align with. And then I would notice that there were sort of these outliers. There were these women that I would find who were like rebelling against all of that. And they were like, no, like, I don't want to compete. I actually want to be friends with you. I want to collaborate with you. I want to join forces with you. And that's immediately who I knew I wanted to be with. I knew I wanted to be one of those women. So Girl Code is really a roadmap for women who want to, shake the feeling of jealousy, learn to stop the habit of comparison, believe that anything is possible. That book I wrote in 2015. I self-published it. It really did blow up. I mean, I don't know how or why it happened. I'm just grateful that it did. I wrote about this in Girl on Fire. The traditionally published book, like with a publisher and a huge budget behind it and a marketing team and PR efforts, In its lifetime, according to Publishers Weekly, a traditionally published book with a publisher will sell about 3,000 copies. If it's
that is crazy. 3,000 with a traditionally published book.
That's an average. Yep. And you can look up that statistic. It's all over the web. Publishers Weekly released that statement, that research. And then, a good book could sell maybe 10,000. A publisher would be happy if you sold like 10,000 copies. So Girl Code took on a life of its own. And by a year in, I had sold 50,000, like 50,000.
Cara, that is amazing. I mean, that is crazy.
Thank you. And I give credit to everyone listening who's read it and talked about it and shared it. I'm so thankful to all of my readers because it really did go viral somehow. But I think, I was at the forefront of this message that women really needed to hear. I feel like I was one of the earlier voices in the, female empowerment movement, and all of this stuff really has blown up in the past couple of years. It really wasn't as mainstream, I think, 4 years ago. So I knew that I knew I wanted to write a follow-up to Girl on Fire, but a lot happened in between. I actually got a book deal. After all the years of self-publishing, I was offered a book deal to republish Girl Code and to, kind of bring that message to a larger audience, and then publish my next book, which was a book called Like She Owns the Place that came out in 2018. Mm-hmm. That process to me really changed me as a person. And I thought it was going to give me everything I thought I needed. I thought it was going to give me validation. I thought that I was going to feel something that I ultimately never wound up feeling. In fact, I got very depressed during that time period. And I felt very alone, even though I had this team and I had fulfilled this lifelong dream of having a book deal. It was kind of like, is this it? Like, really? And,
why was it like that? What was missing, I guess?
I think there's a lot of things. Like, I don't want to, I appreciate all the efforts that my publisher made, and I think they did the best they could. My editor was fantastic. She's the one who discovered me, and she was great. But a lot of things fell short. It's a very antiquated model. Once you sign a book deal, you're waiting at least 12 to 18 months before your book is ever on a bookshelf. Mm-hmm. So that was really difficult for me. I am very impatient. And I think, a lot of people are. I mean, your fans, your readers are impatient. They want things yesterday. We're in a different society. And, the traditional publishing model hasn't really caught up to that. I also was really unhappy with the marketing and the PR efforts for the book. I felt like I had done so much more on my own before that. And, they really didn't do anything for me that I hadn't done on my own. I had gotten more press organically, more earned media, which is just media that happens from people, getting a hold of your book and loving it and writing about it. Never had a publicist before. And it fell flat for me. It just wasn't what I thought it would be. And it was a great lesson in realizing that we look for the things outside of us. We look for these external wins. We think that they're going to bring us happiness, and ultimately they never do. If you've ever thought, it's just like dating, right? We think that the guy is going to be the thing, like the marriage, we get that ring, it's going to change us, it's going to fulfill something inside of us, but it can't. It's impossible for anything else outside of us to give us the feeling that we can give ourselves. We have to be happy, we have to feel successful, we have to feel loved, we have to feel worthy on our own, without any of the other stuff. So when that whole experience happened, that went on between 2017 and 2018, I found myself feeling like really depressed. After Like She Owns the Place came out, I was like, okay, what am I going to do next? I don't really know. I definitely don't want to work with my publisher again. And I took time. I had many, many concepts for the book that now became Girl on Fire. It was going to be many different things. I was really going through like a rough time. I was like, am I done? Like, did I have my moment? Was Girl Code it? Like, am I not going to be able to recreate that success? Do I have anything left to say? And then I started to use that experience, which I always recommend everyone do, in your life. If there's something that didn't sit well with you, like, use that to grow, use that as a jump off point to get better and to get stronger. And I said, you know what? I'm going to tell a story about why it's important to choose yourself, and why the outside things don't actually bring us happiness, and why it's important to always blaze your own trail and create your own lane. You don't need to stay in a lane. You need to create your own lane. Like, we don't need to fall in line with what other people in our industry are doing. And I found myself going to that place when I had my book deal. Whereas before, I'd always kind of been a rebel. I'd always done things on my own. I self-published all my own books. I did all my events. Everything was self-funded, self-made, self-published. And I was all of a sudden now I was caring about things like the New York Times bestseller list and opt-ins and websites and what people's book parties looked like. And I was like, screw this. Like, I'm going back to what I know best, which is doing things my way. And I'm going to write a book about that, because honestly, there's so many people out there who are convinced that they have to follow these rules and they have to do things in a way that everyone's done it before. But in reality, I think the most magical pieces of work and art and the most magical people are the ones who just truly blaze their own trails. So that is ultimately what Girl on Fire is about. I broke away from my publisher. They had first right of refusal on the book, and I approached them and I said, look, I'm doing a follow-up to Girl Code and I don't want to do it with you. I want to do it on my own. And, they were upset. I guess they were sad. They wanted to work with me again. And, but they respected my decision, and that was that. And now here we are with this book. And I truly think it's my best book yet. I think it blows Girl Code out of the water, to be honest with you. If you liked Girl Code, this book is like on another level. And I really just think the energy behind this book is palpable. I think people are going to feel it. I think they're going to feel that fire, no pun intended, in me when I was writing it, and the passion and the energy that was there, behind those words. So I just can't wait.
Well, I have to say, I think it is your best ever, because you were kind enough to advance me sneakily a copy, which I'm so grateful. And I just felt so cool and like, oh my gosh, I have Girl on Fire ahead of the publishing. So I am so excited, and I have everything highlighted and sticky noted. And when I text you, how it just immediately gives you a sense of freedom right out of the bat, like right off the bat. I just feel like, we're so stifled by all of these ways that we think it should be done. And there's so many programs out there. And like you talk about how, everybody's got their formula for success. And then you find yourself feeling so stressed out because you're not doing it all perfectly. And I finally just got to that point a few months ago where I got exhausted. And it's funny how you're creative for a while, and then you catch yourself getting caught up in what you think you should be doing. And then you feel like you're burnt out because you can just get sucked back in. So how have you managed to, or I don't know, what have you noticed about that? And how do you deal with, you have to be in social media, you're watching these people, but how do you watch it without allowing it to affect your creativity and continue doing your own thing without allowing, or how do you put those blinders on?
Oh, such a good question. I love to talk about this because everybody deals with it. I had a client this morning dealing with it. I had someone yesterday I spoke to dealing with it. I still have to catch myself when I feel those feelings coming on. It's very normal to feel overwhelmed and frustrated and envious and confused because we're watching so many people live their lives, and it's not normal. This is not the kind of world we're supposed to be living in.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to see every detail of everyone's life and business and marriage and family. It's bizarre. It's extremely bizarre. So I think recognizing that is step number one. Just being like, okay, this is strange, right? Like, it's just, I shouldn't know what somebody is eating for breakfast before I've even made myself a cup of coffee because I picked up my phone and I looked at my Insta stories in bed. It's just absurd. And you have to really check yourself with the amount of time that you're spending online. I always recommend doing an audit of your time. If you have a newer iPhone, there's actually an app on there that will tell you how much screen time you're spending, and it'll break it down by app. Mm-hmm. So it'll tell you how many hours you're spending on Instagram, how many hours you're spending on your text messages, your email. So I think being honest about that is important. And for me, I mean, I do work online a lot and I share a lot on Instagram specifically, but I try to just post and go. Mm-hmm. I try to just share and just log out and just get off of it and move on and keep myself motivated and moving and inspired and creative. And, the best moments of my life are not spent in front of a screen. And I try to remind myself of that. Like, I don't have any amazing memories where I'm like, wow, wasn't it a great day where I was just scrolling my Insta stories and watching
so true.
Watching some strange person have a baby shower that I've never met. Like, what the fuck? Like, it's not normal. So
Yeah.
getting out of that habit and really like removing yourself from that habit and that behavior is really important. And finding other things that you love to do, like I really just try to stay in a high vibe space and think about all the things I love. I love going to the theater. I love going to concerts. I love being with friends, going to dinner, exercise. Like, try to fill your life with actual real life events and really audit the time that you're spending on social media, because it's just not healthy.
Yes. So you mentioned something, how the marriage, the ring, even the book deal, right? Like, these things don't make us happy, but it is the one thing that when I'm working with the clients, it's hard to convince, especially my single girls that they feel like, Melissa, but I just want to be with somebody. I want that companionship. I want that relationship. And I just feel like if I have that everything else will fall into place. So since you are married and you are happily married, what do you think about when someone says, I just think I'm going to be happier when I'm married?
That's not true. If you're not happy alone, you're not going to be happy married, because you're going to be finding fault in every single thing your partner does if you're finding fault in yourself constantly. So, I think it's important to understand that marriage and relationships aren't perfect. If anything, you're bringing a little bit more stress into your life, because now you're dealing with a whole other human being, and you're dealing with how to navigate their feelings on top of your own and their needs and their desires. And of course, it's amazing to be in love and to have someone that cares for you. But I think we have to get out of this fantasy mode where we think everything's going to be, champagne and rainbows, because that's just not the case. What are you going to do when your partner has a bad day, or they lose their job, or they get sick? Like, these are real things that happen in marriages. And I don't think people choose to look at any of that and understand that that's part of it as well. So, I just think there's also a huge responsibility that comes with marriage. Like, after you get the ring and have the wedding, which everybody's excited about, then there's the day to day. You're sharing a bathroom with that person. You're loading the dishwasher with that person. You're doing your taxes with that person. Like, none of that stuff is glamorous or romantic or even fun. So, you have to look at both sides and realize that you're just choosing to see the fantasy, just like the book deal. I was choosing to see the fantasy when in the reality of it wasn't glamorous. And, it was, I appreciated the parts of it that, it was an accomplishment for me. It was nice to be recognized by them. It was, it made me feel good to be, quote, chosen. But at the end of the day, why did I want to be chosen in the first place? And I think we have to ask ourselves that with relationships too. Why do I need to be chosen by this partner? What is that going to do for me? Like, I need to choose myself. And if somebody else comes along and compliments me, that's great. But ultimately, they're not going to make or break my life.
I love that question. Why do I need to be chosen? Journal prompt, everyone. Why do I need to be chosen? Yeah, because it feels like it's this, I need to be validated by somebody, or everything else I'm doing doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? It almost feels, it gives, a lot of women are sitting there, even though we're going into 2020 and we're entering. Aren't you excited though, just to be able to say the 20s? I'm so excited. I hope they bring back all the old fashioned, but it's just nice to have a name to the decade. What is the name of from 2000 to 2019? We never came up with cool names for those decades. Anyway,
that's true.
But we're going into this, we are so modern in a lot of ways, yet we're so retro in our thinking. And I don't really think it's our fault necessarily that we're doing things wrong. It's just we're evolving, where now we don't need a man to provide, and we're not looking for the provider. So now the guys are kind of confused as to what their roles in these relationships are. So as a successful married woman, I hate to ask this of married women because it means that something happened to their husband. Let's just say we put you in a different dimension and now you're single again. Knowing what you know now and the journey that you've gone to choose yourself and blaze your own trail and go from being unhappy in corporate America to 9 published books, how would you approach looking at yourself as a single woman? What would you look for in a husband? When you look at the world through those eyes, what would you say to another single woman?
I would be so picky because I know my worth now and I know how accomplished and special and unique I am and how much I have to offer. So that person would have to really be able to match me in so many ways, match my ambition, match my energy, match my passion, match my work ethic, match my generosity. Like so many different things would need to be in alignment for me to choose someone to be with, to spend my time with, to offer my, self to. So, I think for sure, probably somebody who is either passionate or an entrepreneur or passionate about a cause or something, that would be a requirement. And I would not really waste my time. If I saw a red flag, I think I'd be out the door. I'm just too busy these days, and I think that's like one of the best things about finding something you love to do. And again, it doesn't have to be this one huge purpose in life. There's many seasons and many chapters of our lives that we need to honor and, let ourselves sink into. But when you're focused on yourself and making an impact in the world and doing cool stuff, you're like less likely to just be worrying about the text message that came through. Or like, I can't even imagine being in that place again. And I was there many years ago, letting someone else dictate my mood, letting someone else just dictate my happiness. And I would never go back there again. I can't even imagine it.
Yeah. I've grown to that place and I understand that now, but man, it took me a while to understand that finding a purpose greater than myself and helping other people is so much more rewarding than a romantic hot makeout session. We're in such pursuit of romance. And I feel like that's the biggest ripoff for women. Like we are so fixated on romantic moments that, and when I look at married couples, I'm like, it doesn't look unromantic, but it just isn't. It's like the fairy tale lives on. I swear. It's like I want to punch the fairy tale in the face sometimes because it's just this expectation that can never be achieved. And so but it's always like every time you see The Bachelor, I just want the fairy tale. And it's like, why? Why do we want this fairy tale? Because it's like we go back to 1950s housewives. Like you want the guy and he's going to carry you off into the sunset. And we still have this idea that that's happiness. And then we miss out on all these experiences, just like you're having, like all of the incredible things that have happened in your life because you chose to do your passion, write books, like you chose to take those risks.
Yeah.
All right. So going in the same line of the fairy tale and we're almost like jealous or we're holding ourselves, not really jealous, but we're holding ourselves in comparison of the fairy tale. Sometimes we're comparing ourselves, like in your last question where you say, think about someone you're secretly competing with. And I find that when I'm working with clients a lot, they'll say, they're on social media and they're competing with the girl that they think has it all, whether it's her personal life or her business. So, I love your question. How does competing serve you? So why this part in your book? How do you feel about competition and how that affects us in business or how we're comparing each other or comparing ourselves to others?
I talked about competition when I wrote Girl Code. That was like a big theme in that book. And I just feel like it needed more attention. I needed to continue this conversation because it's still a problem for so many people. And I get it. Again, going back to what I said earlier about, the unhealthy nature of social media and the overwhelming amount of information and content and personal information on people that we're just consuming every day. So it happens. And I think it's normal to recognize that it happens. But again, asking yourself, like, how does this make my life better? How does it serve me to compare myself to her? How does watching every moment of her life make my life any better? Mm-hmm. Does it make it any different? Does it make it any worse? And just being honest with yourself about those answers. And I think it's kind of like one of those moments where you're like, oh, duh, of course it doesn't serve me. So why am I doing this? Why am I feeding myself with things that hurt me? Why am I participating in behavior that ultimately hurts me? And, that's a very deep-rooted question. It's a lot to think about where that comes from, why we're doing it. But I think rather than getting caught up in being angry about the fact that maybe you participate in that, just figure out a way to pull yourself out of it. Like, what's a better habit that I can take part in? What feels better to me? What can I do with my time and my energy instead of worrying about this other person or thinking about somebody else or comparing myself to someone else, what is something else now that I can do for me that will make me feel good, that will move my life forward, that will move my business forward, that will make me feel happy? It's just, we do things. It's like checking your ex's page, like nobody feels good when you do that. Why do we do it?
I know. Why do we do that?
Why do we do it? It's almost like very, self-sabotaging behavior. The same thing goes for looking at someone who you may feel that tinge of jealousy. And I think there's another way to kind of overcome that is, if it is someone that or if it's someone that you have access to and you see something about her life that's going well, that's triggering you in some way. Let's say she just got in a relationship, she just got engaged. Why not reach out to her and congratulate her? Level the playing field a little bit, take her off that pedestal, because everyone is equal. Everyone is the same. No one is better than anyone. She's not more deserving than you or worthier than you because she has a ring now or, she has a family. Just reach out and say, hey, I'm really happy for you. I hope that you're happy. You're inspiring to me. And notice how you shift when you're able to do that. When you tell someone you're inspiring me, because that's really what jealousy is. They're highlighting a part of your life that you want, right? Yeah. They're bringing something up for you that you feel like you also want. So let her know. And I can promise you that you will feel like a weight lifted off your shoulders when you're able to do that.
That is so true. Cara, when you were saying that, I realized that I started doing that with couples. Like when people would ask me, are you seeing someone? And I would feel bad and I would feel jealous by accident, not because I had any growth, but just by accident. One time I said, I would love to have that, what you have. I feel like you're so fortunate to have found somebody and I haven't found that person yet. And so I really, tell me how did you meet? Or, I started just asking questions and I was amazed at how that the most happy couples were the most generous with their advice. And it also was the advice that made me slow down. It made me realize that this wasn't the end all be all to happiness. And yet I could look at the most beautiful marriages and know that, yes, that works for them, but it's not like if I have a husband that I'm just going to be walking on clouds. Once I made that connection, it was just because I was able to finally say, especially to, one of my relatives that's always extra judgy. I finally was just like, hey, do you think that husbands are just walking around and I'm just declining them all? You're really fortunate to have what you have. So I'm like, you need to say some prayers for me to find what you have. Recognize you don't just get to ask that question. And then and then she was like, oh my gosh, you're right. And it was just so much more of a productive conversation instead of feeling bad and hiding and then feeling that jealous and then, just staying quiet, because then we feel like, well, I'm not worthy to talk to her or have that conversation until I meet the status. And so it's just so self-defeating. So yeah, just being happy for people and asking questions, it made the biggest difference. So yeah, I love that.
It really does.
Yes.
It really, really does.
Yes. So I want to give people a few tips just to kind of wrap up on where to begin, because I remember when I first started following you, I had my idea for Gumball Love, but I had gone through some coach hurt, as Rachel Luna says, where I was just kind of wounded of not feeling insecure about how I was putting Gumball Love into the world. And you were like the saving grace. I don't know if you realize how pivotal I actually just told this story in my academy and then last night with my group coaching call, and I was like, I don't know why I'm crying about it now, but I guess I'm crying about it. But bringing it up were really, now I'm talking about crying, so I can feel like the bubbles coming up. So, okay, we're going to get past this, but your belief in me as a nobody, I just was barely starting, and I wrote you an email because you had talked about your weight loss journey, and it really touched me. And I explained my challenges with weight loss and body image. And I don't even remember I should go back and see if I can even find that email, but you wrote back and you invited me to Soul Cycle in Brooklyn. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was so scared to go to SoulCycle 1 because I'd only been once and it was not a good experience. I was like, I'm going to meet Cara and we're going to SoulCycle, and my feet are stuck to the pedals and if I freak out because I can't move, I was like, I'm in this dark room.
I remember that day.
Yes.
I remember it was winter. We had fur coats on. We took, fake fur coats, of course.
Yes.
We took a selfie, I think, right? Like
Yes.
afterward, getting coffee. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. And it was like, you really helped me to just speak from my heart and tell my message and not get so caught up in all of the forms that I was trying to fill and all of the structure that was, you know how it is. There's now it's even worse. There's like a course for everything, and it's like, do this and don't do that. And I felt so low in that moment, and you like gave me such a permission to just be myself. And that's what I love about you, is that you're not telling people how to do anything. You're giving it's like you have this loving, like if I think of like bumpers on a bowling alley or something, it's a terrible example, but it's like you have these nudges that keep us going down the trail that we're supposed to, not doing it your way. You're not saying this is the way to do it, but it's like finding our own fire, finding our own path, which is what I love for my girls to do, that you're going to find your guy in a completely different way than somebody else does. You might meet him online. You could meet him around the corner. It doesn't matter. So I love how you teach people to find this organically and really where it comes from the heart and what is that passion that's lying underneath. And I wanted to ask you too, like what books you recommend to start with, because Girl Code was the first book I really devoured of yours, and it helped me even just get started on that path. But if someone's brand new, or they're like, Cara, you're this super successful author now, like, where do I even begin? Like, where's like step one that I can even get started even figuring this out, because I'm sad and crying over this breakup, or I don't even know who I am because I've been stripped down and I don't even know how to build it from step one. Where would you start, or where would you tell someone to start, maybe with one of your books, or just any tips for someone that feels like this all sounds great, but I don't even know where to begin?
Well, I think Girl on Fire is a great starting place because, Girl Code is really focused on business, but this book is really just focused on finding the fire within you. And I think that really will help anyone listening, put things in perspective and focus on choosing themselves and focus on being intentional about their happiness. So I think Girl on Fire really, I would say, is the book to begin with if you want to, to really get that motivation. I also have a workbook called Style Your Mind. And I think that's a great tool as well, because there's a lot of journal prompts in there. There's a lot of questions to ask yourself. If you're confused about what you want to do with your life, if you're looking for direction, I think that workbook is perfect for someone in that position. And I have a podcast too with a similar name, Style Your Mind. And, there's tons of, I have over 200 episodes at this point. So you can dig through there. Yeah. And as far as those would be the three tools that I would recommend from my world, my library. I think, other tips, just focus on spending time with yourself, stop polling people, stop asking people what you should do, who you should be with, where you should meet someone, what you should do with your life, and just spend some time. I like to use the phrase, get intimate with your intuition. And what I mean by that is spend time alone and follow that little nudge. Like what would feel good today? I love to ask myself that question. If you have a day off or a day to yourself, like what would feel really good today? What does my soul really want to do? Do I want to spend time in nature? Do I want to go shopping and treat myself to something nice? Do I want to get a pedicure? Do I want to read a book? Like start to get used to being friends with yourself. I think when you come out of a relationship or you're looking for someone, we're putting so much emphasis on another person, but put the emphasis on you, put all of that energy into doing something that makes you feel good. And I think those little things will start to make you realize just how silly it is to put all of the energy on another person and think that someone else is going to fill a void, because it's just not true.
Yes. And all of those things, like as I'm listening, I incorporated so many of those things because of you. Every time I do a bubble bath, I'm like, I have this fancy gold tray and I put a candle in there. And then I always have to have a fancy glass. And I'm like, Cara just made me think that this is now a normal way to take a bath. Like normally I just put water in there, but yeah, it's totally like, that's my default, like Epsom salt. It's gotta be. And I just throw it all together now as if like this is the routine. And sometimes I step back and go, wow, what a change. Just so many little things. I looked at everything and like upgrade. I remember, I'll never forget the first thing I upgraded. I still carry this little Kate Spade keychain because I spent $50 on a keychain. But every time I got my keys out and I put my key into my New York City apartment door, I just had this cluster of ugly keys and I wanted to just level that up. And it was a big deal to spend $50 on a keychain when I first started. But I just remember that was one of the first symbols of, I want to feel good when I pull out my keychain because I'm in New York now. So I just want my cash card and my Metro card and I want it to be sleek and stylish. And having the confidence to just pick my nail polish color and not feel like, and feel good about this is my decision and no one else's, because this is what I like to do, and not ask permission. I can't believe how many times we do think we have to ask, is this okay? Or does this look okay? Instead of just saying, I mean, for me, I really love ridiculously tomato red nail polish. Like and if I get another color, I'm sad about it. Like I hate my nails for 2 or 3 weeks. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going back to red. So just those small things that you have really instilled in me to pay close attention to, because all those little things add up to your whole lifestyle. I mean,
they really do. Yeah. It's funny. You mentioned, getting to pick out a nail polish without worrying about what someone is going to say or think. I think that's so important. I dyed my hair pink for the first time a couple of years ago, and it was something I always wanted to do. I always dreamed of having pink hair. And when I was with my ex, I would have never had the nerve to do pink hair. I mean, he would have definitely had something to say about it. He would have made me feel bad about it. He would have said I looked crazy or whatever, some negative controlling comment, I'm sure. And when I did it, I was like, wow, like it felt so empowering to do something for myself. And my husband now loved it. He was like, you look amazing, like so supportive. But even if I was single, I would have been like, yes, I'm doing this for myself. And I think, realizing that when you do live for yourself and you do make those choices, it really is just the most empowering place to be. And if anyone's listening right now and they feel nervous or they feel like they're not courageous enough to do something for themselves, whether it's their personal style or it's taking a leap in their career or it's moving to a new city, like life is so short. It goes by in the blink of an eye. And I think we have to realize that, and we have to understand that nothing is promised. So are you going to just continue to live to make other people happy, or live in the fear of judgment and worrying about what people are going to think? Or are you going to live your life out loud? Are you going to live to the fullest? Are you going to soak in every single drop of life and love it and be proud and be excited every single day? I mean, it could go two ways. And I mean, I know that there's only one way I want to live. And when I made that decision, everything changed.
I love that. That is awesome. Cara, I could ask you questions all day. You can tell all of your knowledge, your wisdom. It all comes from experience of being on the road. And I admire and respect you so much, because you've really shown that you can build this from having no connections. I just reread that in your book, how you knew no authors. Sometimes people think, oh, you live in New York City and we live this charmed life. It's really tough living in New York City. It's not the charmed life. This city will kick your ass. So starting here sometimes I think is harder, than living outside of it and trying to, have the idea. When you're here, it's not easy every single day. So to start from no authors, no online community, and to what I admire so much about you is just you show up every single day. I can always see what you're doing. You always are building. You're always giving content. You're always giving. And so I love that you have a whole part in your book about generosity, because that couldn't be more you. You've been so generous just to me. I can imagine how many women have benefited just from your selfless responding to messages and encouragement and love. And everything you have now is a representation of all of that love and generosity you've given to so many women. So I'm thanking you on behalf of all of us, because I know a lot of my girls know you. They know me because of you.
Aw, thank you. You're going to make me cry. That is so sweet. I really appreciate it. I do. And I encourage everyone to like live in that space of generosity. It's like the best way to get out of your own head and get out of your own ways to go help someone else. So even if it's something simple like checking in on someone or leaving someone a sweet message or email, like just do it. It makes a huge difference.
Yes, I love it. Okay, so where can everyone find you? Because I want everyone, you need to get Girl on Fire. It is awesome. It's going to be just like Girl Code and like She Owns a Place, where you've got it, like you're going to beat up the book, paging it back and highlighting and sticky noting. So tell everyone where they can find you, where they can find your books and find you online.
Yeah. So my website is thechampagnediet.com, and I have a blog there, and you can follow me on Instagram. It's the same name. It's at The Champagne Diet. And you can find all of my books on Amazon, and Girl on Fire is now available. So if you go to Amazon, you just type in Girl on Fire, you will find it. And I hope that you guys love it. Feel free to share it, post it, tag me. I want to hear what you think. I love everyone's feedback and book selfies and all that good stuff. So make sure that you let me know what you think of it.
All right. Thank you so much, Cara. I can't wait for your book to come out. I'm so excited that this is happening, that the podcast is releasing on your actual book release day on 11/11, which 11 is my lucky number. And did you realize it's 11 years ago that I'm sure you've already realized this, but
no,
you just said
oh my God.
11 years ago on 11/11. So,
oh my God, I just got
Me
chills.
too.
That is so crazy. I did not realize that. I love that number, and it's a magical number. And I think to anyone who's listening today, if it is 11/11, like go do something amazing for yourself. It's a very powerful day, and I'm so excited to release the book on this day. And I can't even believe you said 11 years ago, because that is just wild.
Yeah.
But there are no coincidences in the universe.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, I thought of that as soon as you said I started this 11 years ago. I was like, oh my gosh, 11 years ago. Yep. So, that's awesome. All right. So congratulations, Cara. I cannot wait to see everyone's reaction to your book. It's going to be awesome. So I can't wait to have you back.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want more information or to schedule a private coaching session, or better yet, to join the next Back to You Academy, go to gumballlove.com. If you loved this podcast, I would love for you to share it with your friends. And if you really loved it, a 5-star review is the best compliment you can give. Remember, you are enough, you are right where you should be, and the only thing you have to do is keep going. I'll leave you with my favorite quote by Henry David Thoreau. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams and live the life you have imagined. Until next time, I'll see you soon.